Right, great. So, welcome everyone. My name is Apurva. I'm from Center for Social Research, and CSR in collaboration with Impulse NGO Network is hosting a webinar today on World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Today, our moderator is Ms. Pari Saikia. Welcome, Pari. She is an independent journalist and documentarian who runs Asia's first YouTube documentary channel on human trafficking. Today, we all are joining to promote awareness towards the protection of human rights and support victims of human trafficking. He is also a recipient of the Grand Prize of European Commission's Lorenzo Natali Media Prize 2021 for her story on trafficking of Rohingya women. She's also a two-time grantee of journalismfunds.eu's Modern Slavery Unveiled program. Welcome, Pari, once again, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Apurva. Good evening and welcome everyone. First of all, thank you so much for investing your time with us on a Saturday evening. Apurva has already introduced me, but yet again, to tell about myself, I'm Pari Saikia and I'm an investigative journalist and a documentarian and also the moderators for today's session. So today we have an amazing panel on World Day Against Trafficking in person, and we'll be talking about how technology can be a boon or a ban in combating human trafficking. But before we dive in, let's get started with the panel's introduction. Our first guest today is a human trafficking crusader who played a crucial role in fighting child labor in the red hole coal mining of the Jaintia Hill district in the northeastern state of Meghalaya. Her whole life has been dedicated to seeking justice for trafficking survivors. She is an internationally renowned human rights crusader and has received many international and national awards. She is Hasina Karvi, founder and managing director of Impulse Social Enterprises and founder chair of board of Impulse NGO Network. She is also a Ashoka Fellow and Aspen ILI Fellow. Our second guest today is a human rights activist and ethnographer specializing in child rights and fighting against gender-based violence and human trafficking. She has been actively involved in anti-trafficking raids across India and rescued more than 5,000 girls and boys till date. Since 2020, she has been extensively working in Northeast India to spread awareness on human trafficking. She has represented India at many international platforms as a young changemaker. She is Pallavi Ghosh, founder of the Impact and Dialogue Foundation. Last but not the least, our third guest today is an investigative journalist and also a PhD researcher on human trafficking. Her recent two-part investigative series on a cross-border trafficking of Punjabi women to Europe was published by Vice World News and Vice Italia. She's a two-time grantee of Modern Slavery Unveiled program by European organization called journalismfund.eu. She is journalist Sona Singh. I welcome you all. So there will be 3 rounds of questions. Post that we will open the floor for participants who can post their questions in the comment box. So let's get started with the brilliant panels. So my first question is for both Hasina and Pallavi, since both of you come from the social sectors and are active crusader of human trafficking. So in this era of social media and easy access to the internet, where traffickers are ditching the traditional method of surfacing at the ground level, at the geographical locations in reaching out the victims, to misusing technology to reaching the victims directly, to the use of dark web, and to carry out their illicit activities unabated and with impunity. So has this become a major challenge in naming the traffickers and rescuing victims? Let's start with Hasina and then followed by Pallavi. Yes, over to you.
Thank you, Pari, for that question. And I think every year we observe this day as a reminder, for people like us who are actually in the journey of ending human trafficking. But I think every time we observe this day, there are also new challenges that is coming up, in our forefront that is challenging development workers, human rights defenders, organization working on the human trafficking spaces, that as we move forward for a solution to end human trafficking, we have a new dimension of trends, which is evolving, like just the question you have put to me. So just going straight into the question, just what I wanted to put forward is that the web space, the internet space, I often say this word that we have technology for good, which what we are doing right now is reaching out, to millions of people. And we have technology, which is challenging us every day. That is how we use technology and how technology is being used. At the same time, when we're looking at the new trends, how technology platform has been a hotbed for human traffickers. And who are these human traffickers and the new trends of human trafficking are people who are actually experts in the domain, expert in the dark web, expert into the psychological aspect of understanding, the entire, and I would say how human function themselves in the humans, in the internet space, and what is, internet using as a marketing space. We look at artificial intelligence today. It is developed basically to market a product. It's developed, to gather customers, to actually buy a product, to push a product, to push the emotions of people to buy a product. But here, our learning lessons in the last 6-7 years is that traffickers are using the same, artificial intelligence to understand the challenge that people are actually there, putting themselves in the open and making themselves vulnerable. So when I use the word making themselves vulnerable, what does it really mean? Now, artificial intelligence read our like and dislike, our emotions, and how we respond to our everyday situations. And in the process of that, we have psychologists at the end of the day working with traffickers to really nap, who are these people who are vulnerable. And that is how the whole online spaces today has posed as a new trends of human trafficking. And from the number of cases that we have been dealing, we have also seen that many of the young people who post their entire emotion when they have low self-esteem, when they're feeling lonely, when they're feeling isolated, are actually being trapped in this whole cycle that we have the unknown spaces, who is trying to capture and understanding our emotions, our vulnerability, and are reaching out to these young people. And that is where we have some of the cases that we are calling them and naming them as the mama counselor. The mama counselor comes and pop up in Messenger, comes and pop up in your WhatsApp, comes and pops up into your spaces, reaching out to you, trying to understand who you are. And in a space when today, physical interaction is becoming lesser day by day, a lot of young people are posed with this challenge, of being isolated. And that's how they're getting trapped. They're getting trapped in a space where they don't really realize it, that the person who is trying to interact with them is somebody who have studied through artificial intelligence, through the AI, in understanding the whole perception of what we like, what we don't like, how vulnerable we are, how emotionally we are, and what are the pulses that would tick us when we are actually being communicated. So that is where the mama counselor of a particular case, which is quite rampant at the moment, and we have seen that rampantness, is that they're using webcam to actually help young people build the self-esteem, in terms of their looks, in terms of the figures, in terms of their outer appearances, where they're feeling that we have to be this size, we have to be that size to be appreciated and to be liked. But actually, traffickers are taking advantages of that, where this young girl, I would say this particular cases, because she trusts the unknown so much, into the extent that she feels the person knows her so well. The person we don't know till today, whether it's a he, a she, or any other gender, functioning on the other end, that she was even asked to strip, and opened the webcam. And then she was slowly being blackmailed at the end of the day. And the blackmailing went further, which is an online sexual exploitation, because she was put into the situation that if she does not continue to do what is being asked, the tape will be viral. And that is the next, kind of challenge that traffickers are actually coming online. So this is just one particular case just to open this conversation today, that how do we really interface with the internet? How do we really look at young people vulnerability in the internet? Who should we work with? We organization, who is in the nonprofit sector, we ourselves has to educate ourselves first before before we fight this new trend. Because many of the NGO today are not equipped to understand artificial intelligence, are not equipped to understand the pros and cons, how it operates. Even the law enforcement, we have been training law enforcement for the last 30 years. But at the end of the day, the law enforcement today have not understood that cybercrime, which is interlinked to human trafficking, has a different way of booking a case. How do we go about it? How do they understand when is the draw factor of booking a case? Because there have been cases that we are dealing from the Impulse Case Management Center, and they said, but she did it willingly, she opened the camera willingly. She decided to take off her clothes willingly. How can we call that trafficking? So that is where I pose a question to everybody in this discussion today. What is the new step? And how can this step come forward so that we can fight online safety? And how do we learn it together? Thank you.
Yes, Pallavi.
Yeah, hi. So Hasina ma'am already told so many things. So I would just say one thing, that from my experience, one of the primary thing that I've seen is that there is no bonding and attachment in the family, like since it was earlier. Time has changed. Parents are so busy, because the cases that I get, most of the children tell that their parents give them expensive, tablets, expensive phones, and, they don't have any interaction with the parents, no interaction with the parents. So children try to build a world of themselves with the phone or with the whatever technology you can say, and they look for it outside because they are not getting at home. And the fact that somebody is telling them, oh, you look good, oh, how was your day, that kind of makes them emotionally attached and vulnerable. It becomes more of an habit. Also, I've seen that most of the time during COVID, this was something that I've seen in COVID, people did not have that physical interaction has gone missing. Like, you see, we still are into this whole concept of meeting people physically. There's a different bonding when you meet someone physically, and meeting people online, talking to them online. The entire system has changed. People are becoming so vulnerable. And as ma'am said about AI, of course, because what happens is that our Facebook algorithms and our Instagram algorithms gives us access to those information which we have scrolled, maybe unknowingly or knowingly. No, they give us options. So many children have been trafficked. Even we have got cases where engineers have trafficked children. And when we question the engineers, their response was, before COVID, we used to get a salary of 1 lakh. Post COVID, we are getting 50K. The rest 50K we are not getting because of salary cut. But our expenses has not gone down. So what we do, when we are told to make a call, we just randomly call numbers and trap people, trap girls. Because we are not seeing them, so talking to someone online doesn't make us a difference, because we are not seeing the violence, right? What's happening. So you can see how people, this whole concept of how everyone is blackmailed. Like the dearth of money, poverty is one of the main reasons, which all of us agrees. And it's very, very easy to lure girls, especially girls, boys also, but girls from the age group of 11 to 18. Now in Northeast, I'm in Assam now, I'm seeing girls that are lured, they're 8 years old. They're 8 years old. The moment they see a smartphone, they're so excited. They start clicking pictures. They start making them look good with this Snapchat and all this camera, all these settings that have come, and then they keep posting. Now children have started posting where they eat, what they wear. I remember just 10 years back when I was a student, I remember I did not have a phone. So we used to spend time with our family. Now we are on the phone all the time. All the time. And it's like we are trying to prove to the world what we are doing. Traveling in flights, eating outside, going for anything. Like right now, people get to know where the other student is going or where your family is through internet. And Facebook has become a dustbin. Like, it might sound bad to hear because I am also using Facebook, and that so much of our information goes through Facebook. But maximum girls I have rescued in the last 2-3 years are through Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Like even with TikTok, the videos in TikToks, the way the girls, they make themselves look so revealing and appealing and everything. And as ma'am said about, they are taught everything. They will be started from the scratch. They will be told, you have to, this is how it functions. This is how, because girls, especially girls living in villages, they don't know how to access phone. So, there is a tutorial where you will be told how to open, how to start, how to come online, how to expose yourselves. Everything is being organized and shown in a way that you will feel that, okay, fine, this person is helping me. And then you will be lured with the money. And then by the time you reach, you are trafficked. And then, yes, of course, the saying that, Are usne to, that person showed herself or that person called, how can you say it's trafficking? There's a thin line between trafficking and missing. So, they always mix it up with trafficking. Like always they mix it up. Today I went to meet the GRP and the RPF. The law enforcement keeps changing again and again. You keep training them, they keep changing. And then we are always looking in training senior officers. We always have to train the lowest level of officers, who are the constables, the head constable, because they are on the ground. They are the first-hand responders. And as ma'am mentioned, NGOs, they don't have that expertise. They don't have that exposure. They don't have that much of funding. How do they reach? And especially working in Northeast has become so challenging. Most of the time, by the time a case reaches us, the person has crossed the border. So how do we deal with it? Then there is no vehicles, there are climatic conditions, there is internet, there are 10 other conditions that's forcing us not to reach the survivor. So these are some of the challenges. And as far as technology is concerned, I think most of us are using technology not for some benefit, but to get into trouble. Like, this is what I keep telling the children. You don't use it to do something good, you are always ending up in trouble. Every day I get calls of at least 10 to 12 children who told me that, sister, somebody has our video. One of my friends just told me he got his video and that girl is blackmailing. Just imagine an IITian being blackmailed by somebody who has taken the video and harassing him that she wants 20 lakhs. So you can just imagine, if educated people are being blackmailed, think about the people living in small towns and villages of Northeast.
Right. This AI, with AI coming up and everyone using social media and the easy availability of internet has actually made things more critical for, especially for the young people. And so much, all the information that both of you have shared are just mind blowing. And I don't think most people are aware of it. The how technology is misused by criminals out there to manipulate and to to carry out the illicit activities. So Sona, since you are a journalist and a researcher at the same time, I think, which is a plus point. So how challenging is it for you as a journalist, or call it a researcher, to get a data on such cases?
Hi, thanks. First of all, my background was in history, and I'm a student of international relations, and I started doing my research in trafficking. And because I'm a student of area studies, my area is Russia, and I'm looking at the trafficking of women in Russia during the 90s. So when you ask about data collection, it's very tough. But then before I talk about that, I would like to clarify a few points about as a researcher who started her studying trafficking. So first of all is that we have to be very clear about what trafficking is, because when you read the literature, when you read news reports, there are reports about examples giving about modern slavery. That in the same paragraph, it's reported that this was a case of trafficking, and they say that this is modern slavery, this is smuggling. So many terms are used interchangeably, which points that it's a term that invites conflation. There is a confusion regarding what it is. So first of all, as a researcher, as a journalist, who's reporting on such such an important topic, it's important to understand and have the conceptual clarity before reporting, before doing the story. And another thing is that it is an assumption that most trafficking cases are only involve women who are trapped into sexual slavery. But many reports, like the global trafficking, the GLOTIP reports that is published by the UNODC, over the years, it has pointed out that there are cases involving men also who are trafficked, and boys, and and then more than sexual exploitation, more than sex trafficking, there's trafficking that is taking place for labor, for slave labor, forced labor. So certain things have to be kept in mind, and then then another thing is that there's more internal trafficking taking place within countries as compared to cross border trafficking. Another thing is that every country in this world at the present time, in a globalized world, in a post-globalized world order, most every country is is either a transit country, a destination country, or a source country, or all of these things combined into one. So when we talk about data collection as a researcher, when you look at data, it's tricky. For example, in the case of India, we have the National Crime Records Bureau, which comes up with yearly reports about trafficking statistics of how many trafficking victims have been cases have been reported from every state. Internationally also, I was looking at the data, and it says that it talks about trafficked people who've been trafficked from Nepal, and if they are reported in India, so they have a columns for that. The data is reported in that way. On the international level, organizations like the United Nations Organization for Drugs and Crime, they come up with I think reports every 2-3 years, where they come up with regional trends on trafficking. Earlier, they used to have countrywide reports, but now they have area-specific reports, and they point out towards various trends and things like that. Another place to look for data is the U.S. Trafficking in Persons report, which is released annually, and it puts countries in 3 tiers depending on the kind of anti-trafficking work that has been done in these countries. But then apart from looking at these, data, there is the International Organization for Migration, which has a global human trafficking database. So there are various places where you can look for data and country specific. Like, for example, last year I was doing but data collection on the ground level is very dicey. In many places, like Pallavi said, despite training, law enforcement officials, even senior officials, they do not know or they do not have that data at hand. Like I was reporting in Punjab last year for a story, and we were trying to understand the situation regarding trafficking, and we were just given 2 pieces of paper, because Punjab has anti-trafficking units, and they just gave us about that data, that information did not have any information on the number of trafficked persons, but it had more about the amount of money they had received from the government and things like that. So it's quite dicey at the ground level, but if you persist, there is data that is available. You have to work around it.
Right. And thanks for sharing the names of all the sources for data. Anybody who is a journalist or a researcher out here, as the participants can, look out for information on those sources. And yes, I think I vividly remember you sharing this with me, what happened in Punjab. Like, by that time, I think Sona and I went to a district to collect information. That person was already transferred, and that anti-trafficking unit got shut down. So this is what happens, most of the times. So, okay. So now my question to Pallavi. You have been actively conducting training workshop and programs with law enforcement agencies and NGO stakeholders and students and all. So what is the importance of dialogue in combating trafficking, and how do you make sure that that this dialogues result into action oriented work?
No, I think it's very, very important to do dialogues, because as far as I am concerned, if you ask me, we don't have any facilities of phones or mobiles or anything in the field, because maximum people don't have phone. The only thing that we do is that we knock on doors, because we don't have podiums actually. I knock on doors, I tell people about trafficking. It's so surprising, in some of the villages, outside their houses, there are posters about Manav Taskari and, being trafficked. But, nowhere you will find that people know about it. Outside their house, it's pasted, but people actually talk about it, know about it. Why dialogues is important is that even when I've taken survivors of trafficking to Delhi eminent hospitals, I won't mention those hospitals, doctors used to tell me, when I used to tell that, please get an MLC done of these girls, they used to tell me, kahan se laye ho? Like, from where have you got them? I used to tell them from Delhi red light area. They were like, red light area? They did not used to understand. Okay, red light area, it's confusing. Then when I used to say that they're trafficked girls, they used to say that they may be from traffic signal. Just imagine, there is no awareness. Nobody talks about trafficking. It's not just in villages and schools and colleges. It's like even people, those who are sitting in high positions in the government, social welfare officers, most of them do not talk about it. So the reason dialogue is important is because unless and until people know about it, how will they address it? Forget about informing. It's very important. So what I do, one thing that I've started doing is that I talk to random people. I travel so much. I talk to auto driver, rickshaw driver, coolies, my passengers who go with me. I just randomly start conversations. Some of them must be wondering that I am so weird. Why do I talk with them? But, I just want to tell people. Maybe if I tell one person, that person might tell five, another five. Maybe that's how the ripple effect will happen. And actually, it has helped. Like, I remember one of my friend, I had once upon a time mentioned to her about trafficking. She was traveling in a bus and she found a girl suspicious traveling with somebody who looked really weird and all. She called me. We stopped the bus and we rescued that girl. This girl was from Jharkhand. Just imagine. So I don't recollect when I had mentioned to my friend about the concept of trafficking, but she actually contacted me. Childline reached. You could rescue the girl. So you can see, you don't know who will help you when. It might be after 5 years, it might be just tomorrow, but this talks, this conversation. I'm not saying everybody should be a social worker, everybody should be an activist, because there are different professions, people are interested in different things. But at least the little bit we can do is that be alert. We can actually save so many people and we can stop so many crimes from occurring if we are little bit alert. So that's my request. Have conversations, volunteer. If you want, talk to us. You can get so many materials from Impulse website. You can get to know from two people. I would just request everybody to have dialogues as much as possible.
Right. So this same question is for Hasina, because I know, Hasina, your organization, Impulse NGO Network, has been doing a lot of cross-border projects with your country partners like Myanmar, Bangladesh, Nepal, everywhere, even outside Southeast Asia. So how do you make sure the dialogues are converting, translating into action?
For us, I think with time, we are also evolving. When we started 25 years ago, when the Impulse model as an innovation came about, the kind of training was mainly classroom based, which was, important for the law enforcement at the Police Training Institute, that was ongoing at the Northeast Police Academy, that we would collaborate, impart, or, have joint capacity building. Then we evolved into coming up with handbooks that are comprehensive, innovative, more practical oriented. But with time, we have seen that today, in the world of technology, people are not using those handbooks, which are put together for the law enforcement, for the service providers who shelter homes, or who are actually giving legal support, or even the NGO practitioners themselves. So it's time to evolve, that we are coming about looking at the ways and mean of what is more important, where people at the click of a button gets the information. So what we realized that today, with the online spaces, yes, films are important, no doubt about it, because they take you into a journey of understanding the problems and the trends of human trafficking more visually. It connects to the story, but depends, again, the learning span or the attention span of today's world is so short. It's so short. Everybody wants to learn everything in the click of a button. So for practitioners like us, an organization, we are also looking at, what does the millennial want to learn? How do they want to learn? Which is the platform they want to learn? So we are really working with younger people now, inducting them into our spaces, trying to understand their mechanism of learning, their attention span, so that whatever we are designing, as a way forward, whether it's for the practitioners, for the common young people who are vulnerable themselves, or even for the law enforcement, it's actually apt enough for them to get the message right, in the right way, in the right space. But there's another challenge out here, is that over the last 32 years of my work, I continue to see the disparities, that every organization work in isolation. So what happens, sometimes we are having so much of information out there, but they're not centralized. So people are quite confused, especially in a world of technology, which one is correct, which one is the right one. So we really need to see and gear up ourselves, that non-duplication of resource material, centralizing of resource material, I think the government of India has to come forward, to ensure that there is a common place where people can look for those information, that can actually ask for this information. Or there has to be, like recently we had our meeting with the National Commission for Women, because the National Commission for Women have started the anti-human trafficking units. But we also have Ministry of Home Affairs, which have the anti-human trafficking unit. We need convergence now, convergence of these agencies, so that service providers and practitioners will be able to provide all the information under one hub. And the right information is flowing to the different target group that we are trying to get their attention, looking at from the new way of what this attention span would be. Because if I look back at the material we have powerful film in our spaces, in our website and material. But when we really look back, how many have come up to it, we find that people look for the films more. But now the younger people don't want to watch a film for 10 minutes. No way. Even the law enforcement don't want to go through 10 minutes. We need to give them in 3 minutes. So how do we give that in 3 minutes that is powerfully engaging, attentive, and more powerfully to teach them? That is what is, because human trafficking is a complex issue. It cannot be told in 3 minutes just like that. So there has to be a need of convergence. There had to be a need of young people. What do they actually need? Then when we develop this material, we are developing in the right space and not spending resources and time, just like that, just for the heck of putting material together. Because when I started sitting with young people now, I just realized that they don't want to watch the film which is 7 minutes or 10 minutes. They want to know in 3 minutes. I'm just giving this from the young team of people who I Impulse work together, or interns who come. They want it quick, 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 quick. So Pari, this is something which is a challenge as well. And the enforcement wants to know, jab ye case ho raha hai to kaisa karna hai? They want it now. I have this case, how do I act on it? So we need to, comprehend all these learning, take these feedbacks, have common workshop that we would do in the past. Like in the past, we would have these collaborative workshops to develop material. We have to do it now for the online spaces so that we are actually giving the right information.
Right. Well said, Hasina. We need to do more collaboration, and everybody need to come together on one platform, right? So the next question is based on technology. How technology can be useful in combating trafficking, and especially in investigating cases of crimes. If Hasina, if you can speak on this, and especially I would like you to mention about the app which Impulse NGO model created, and so that people can understand, and maybe somebody what it will be good if this app get replicated tomorrow. Yes. Hasina, you are mute.
So the Impulse Case Management Center, which is a technology data management engaging service providers and the anti-human trafficking unit, evolved way back in 2012 when we got the World Innovation Prize and the Japanese most innovative development project. It evolved because after working with law enforcement and also, nonprofit organization who happen to be our state partners and country partners and service providers, if you don't have information in the right space, for example, and you don't have data in the right space, what happened is, when a case has to be presented at the end of the day at the judiciary, you need to have the information which is legally correct, informative, to the point for the lawyer to present. Then only we get prosecution. Unless a lot of case documentation are done from the emotional aspect of it. The law don't look at emotion. They look at what is legally correct and technically correct, whether the law has been booked in the right place. So these are very important aspects that the Impulse Case Management Center, which is a technology platform used by the anti-human trafficking unit, evolved when we realized that why was prosecution was very less. The other part is that when we talk about policy level, so as Impulse model was scaling up to engage in policy dialogue, especially when we had to engage with the Indo-Myanmar cross-border standard operating procedure, there has to be data sharing on cases of investigation. There has to be, a data information, because sometimes when we go to these, platform where policy is being discussed, we always go back to square one because we have so many kind of data available there. But the government of India would look at NCRB as the centralized data. And NCRB does not really have all the cases registered under ITPA, Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act. So what happened, we always often see even till today that we don't have that, the issue we are talking today, that human trafficking is, an issue that is concerning our country, but the data doesn't show that. So we need to have data which is centralized. So that's why the Impulse case management came as a way of having data in one places that is also helping the judicial, prosecution in terms of presenting the case by the lawyer, but at the same time, an interface between service providers who are actually, intervening into the rehabilitation, by not reinventing the wheel or looking for the kind of case material, but at the same time does stigmatize the girl, asking the same question again and again. When you're referring the girl from after an FIR or rescue to a shelter home, and then she's being presented in the court, she has to answer the same question 10 times. So we need to have data, information, confidential enough, that is being shared for the best interest of the case, so that prosecution is being, we get prosecution, but at the same time, we are also ensuring that the management of counseling, the management of interfaces between counseling is actually taking care in the right direction. So these are important aspects that we found that it's working. But yes, at the moment, we are going through of how this technology platform is actually at the verge where Government of India is reviewing before COVID to make it centralized for the whole country. But we need an interface between different government departments, because we are having MHA as the main organization that deals with the issue of human trafficking and anti-human trafficking unit. But we also have Ministry of Women and Child, which also have the directive to deal with it. And then you also have now, commissions looking into it. So unless they all come together, each one of them will be working in isolation. Our technology platform is trying to engage all of them together. So that's where the phase we are at this moment. It evolved from a data management. It evolved from having service provider providing the services by not stigmatizing the girl. But at the same time, it's also a data analysis for journalists, because that's how the Impulse model press lab, which gives fellowship to journalists. We are proud, Pari, that you're one of the first fellows. And, as a fellow, you have made wonders in terms of even starting the channel. And I'm privileged to be sitting and talking to you in your channel when you join in as our fellow way back, with other fellows. The whole idea at this moment is that where does the data come from? You did an investigation. As an organization, we are providing case material end to end, but we need everybody to come under one central unit so that we don't reinvent the wheel. So that's where the Impulse Case Management Center focuses. Of course, we are evolving at the moment because technology is never stagnant. It's always evolving. New trends are coming in and we have to go with time,
Yes, Pallavi, I would like you to share some inputs on the same question, like how this technology can be instrumental in combating trafficking, especially.
I think the best way for technology is, to help survivors, which I've seen missing. What happens, whenever I go with survivors to courts, I see that they are giving dates and dates to the survivors. So if there was a methodology that was decided by the government where survivors can actually give statements in a video conferencing, which I think Bombay has, like Maharashtra has one court, because most of the time the case gets completely diluted in the entire process. Like some of the times, I remember one of the survivors was rescued in 2001. The survivor forgot about it. By the way, most of the survivors do not want to tell the world that they are survivors of trafficking, especially if they are rescued from forced marriage, for a change, anything like forced marriage, child marriage, whatever, trafficking, anything. The court sends them the witness, the deposition thing in their village. Now, let me tell you, in India or any country, you will see that police coming to your place is a big scare. Like people think that police coming means that person has done something wrong. So just imagine, even if in cities this kind of situation happens, when a police constable goes to a village with a summon saying that your daughter has to be present or your wife has to be present, the man who married the woman or the father who wants to forget what happened to the girl after collecting money sends the daughter, and there is no statement taken for whatever reasons, defense counsel absent, prosecution is on leave, whatever. So this is like re-victimizing the victim. Also, I've seen that the moment we rescue a girl or a boy, we take the person to the police station, there will be statements after statements that will be taken. The first statement is the 161 statement taken by the police. The second statement is the 164 statement taken by the Metropolitan Magistrate. After that, there will be again and again statements. So there is a lot of loopholes in the statements, because the child might have forgotten, something must have happened. In one of my cases, it was a very big case where the child was, if we had rescued the child after another 8 hours, the child would have died. This was a very big case in Safdarjung Hospital in Delhi. Remember, the accused was scot-free. Why? Because when the child was rescued, she knew how to speak in Hindi, but she was sent back home and she was called back after 3 to 4 years when she forgot Hindi completely. She was speaking in Santali. So you just imagine how we are not actually exploiting technology. I'm saying exploiting in the good sense here. Why not come up with a method where we can actually use it in a constructive way? Also, organizations we are talking, all the organizations are focusing into rescue. But when we are rescuing the survivors also, if you ask me also, maybe we have rescued 10,000 of children, but what happens to each one of them? Like whether they are properly rehabilitated, what is the update of the children? Because maximum children I've seen back in the red light area. So the responsibility doesn't end just by rescuing. We have to follow up. Also, because of this entire system loophole, the traffickers are scot-free. So you might be seeing that one trafficker might have sold or might have kept confined 10 girls, but he or she must have got 7 years of imprisonment. So coming out again doing the same crime. Also, one thing I would like to mention, this is not related to technology. When I rescue survivors of trafficking, and when these madams, the brothel owners, are arrested, and when I question them, what they tell me. One woman specifically told me that she was trafficked when she was 14-year-old because she had fallen in love with a man in Nepal, and she was left in Kashmiri Gate when she was 9 months pregnant. And she told me, when I went through the trauma, I started doing the same thing to another person because I was not counseled, I was not rehabilitated. So if you consider me a criminal, of course it's correct, but you also have to understand that I did not see anything positive. So it's kind of a vengeance that keeps on happening. So somebody is trafficking somebody else is trafficking. So that's how the chain keeps on circulating.
Yeah, Sona, from the journalistic point of view, do you think the technology can be useful when it comes to doing your research work or your investigation on a topic like human trafficking? How useful it can be?
Well, I think that, in the backdrop of the pandemic, a lot of studies have been done, and there are a lot of NGOs, they came up with their, reports and with the documents saying that, many traffickers had moved online. So this had become a lot an online thing, and even human smugglers approach migrants through platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook. And all this is happening because traffickers are very smart people, and trafficking is a very dynamic enterprise. So people earn a lot of money, and most of them end up getting scot-free. So they adapt their business models according to the times. So in this during this pandemic, we've seen that traffickers have moved online, and they're using technology, which is a negative aspect of it. But if you want to talk about how technology can play a role, of course we can have I mean, I'm saying I am not a practitioner, as in I'm not a person who deals with trafficked individuals on a day-to-day level. But then yes, we can have trainings for law enforcement officials wherein they learn about these things. But then there are a lot of challenges involved with that aspect also. Regarding investigating trafficking narratives for a story, for an investigative story, journalists use a lot of undercover practices, and undercover filming is there. And there is this open source intelligence, OSINT investigations with information that is obtained from Google Maps, and that is decoded with the help of experts. So that can be done. From a research point of view, this pandemic and technology has helped me a lot, because when I started, I did not know anybody in the field, but then gradually, as more and more platforms became available online during the pandemic, I found a lot of platforms wherein a lot of practitioners, they were, when I found that many of them were available online, so I joined a platform called the Global Association of Human Trafficking Scholars, which is a platform which has more than like 300 trafficking people who are interested in trafficking research, and we have meetings every month, and wherein we discuss our research and the kind of work that is being done in the anti-trafficking realm, how to publish. A lot of support is provided along those lines. So that has been, for me, as a researcher, it has helped me in that way.
Right. So, okay, again, my question to you, Sona. So, how media can, play an important role in reporting on trafficking stories, and more responsibly, I would say. And do you think that the Indian media organization so biasness towards topics like human rights issues or human trafficking issues?
To give background to your question, I would just like to say that Pari and I were a part of an international investigation where we, looked at where we investigated the trafficking of women from Punjab to Europe, and then so coming back to and during the course of that investigation, we underwent a lot of training, because we would be talking to trafficking survivors. So as a reporter, first of all, I would say that one thing that you have to be very clear about when you're going to report a story is that you have your concepts correct, right? So that you do not you embark on an investigation, and you not get confused in jingoism, or and then another thing is that when you embark on an investigation, definitely you will get into roadblocks. People will tell you ki nahi aisa nahi hota hai, hamari taraf nahi hota hai. But then you have to find a middle ground. You have to talk to people. Like Pallavi said that I travel a lot and I talk to people. So you talk to lots of individuals, you talk to a lot of people, and somehow the story comes out. It always somebody is always there willing to talk to you. Having said that, I think when we're reporting on human trafficking stories, one thing that has to be kept in mind is that you have to factor in the consent factor, wherein the survivor whom you're going to document, you have to have their consent, whether they're willing to talk, and you talk in a manner so that you don't re-traumatize them in that process. So that is very important. Are they comfortable talking to you about what and what are their surroundings? So during our training, we were told that you can rope in NGOs or practitioners whom the survivors know already, so that they can talk more openly about their things, what they've survived. So things like that. Another thing is that don't always assume that the survivor is willing to talk to you about their experiences. You have to. There's no point re-traumatizing them. You can get in, other, point of views from other people, from this. And another thing that I would say, that when you're reporting on or a trafficking stories, always have the cultural aspect while doing a story. For example, we were doing a story on trafficking in Punjab, and we visited a Gurudwara, and wherein it was located in Jalandhar, somewhere near Jalandhar, and a lot of people with faith in their hearts, they came with aeroplane models, and they sort of like presented at the altar of the Gurudwara. So we had to factor in the cultural aspect while doing the story later on. So, there are a lot of things that have to be considered while, and I think that media can play a responsible role by, having by keeping these points in mind while reporting a story on trafficking, factoring in the victim, the survivor's account, whether they're ready to talk to you, how much they're willing to share with you. We spoke to a survivor last year, and he had been trafficked, and he would forget. He would tell me something one day, and then another day he had a different account, so he would forget because he had gone through that trauma. So you have to be very careful when you're documenting such people, so that you don't re-traumatize them in that process again and again.
I think, Pari, I'd like to chip in just to add value to what Sona and Pallavi has mentioned. I think, in 32 years of Impulse NGO Network, being an instrument organization, especially in the Northeast, to spend 25 years of our work in addressing unsafe migration and human trafficking, when we emerge like the 6 Ps, the partnership, prevention, protection, policing, press, and prosecution, the media was very vital, targets for us from the very beginning. And when we were bringing partnership, to a single window platform of the 6 Ps, the media was brought together in terms of, while we were training the law enforcement in the Police Training Institute or the Northeast Police Academy, we were having partnership with media in every state of the Northeast. And we were running training, in terms of training media on sensitively reporting on human trafficking, also training media on the do and don'ts, and looking at from the factor that many of the media houses, especially at the state, regional, even at a national level, do not have resources to really provide to the journalists to do investigation on stories on human trafficking. And sometimes the nonprofit organization themselves, are not, I would say, equipped to provide a sensitive story, which is not going to be a sensational story to the world, but rather an investigating way of approaching an awareness level or a dialogue level. We run many, many, many trainings, in the past with with the police, jointly with the media separately, NGO and media together to interface their relationship as well. So learning lessons, I think, for us was that, when we started off in introducing Impulse model, the press lab, which is a fellowship for journalists. And in fact, when we brought that up for India, Bangladesh, and India, Myanmar, and Nepal, and now we are actually relaunch it this year with Bangladesh, and we're opening up the fellowship. We had kept it silent for the COVID time because it was tough to do an investigation stories for journalists during COVID if you can't send them to the field or they go in depth in the field. What we have realized is that resources has to be available with media houses. Media houses has to integrate that, providing spaces to investigate, spaces to publish stories. That is just not a one-time affair. And I think Sona will agree. There are times journalists are passionate to write on human trafficking, but the paper are not willing to publish them. I think you have your same experience as well when you came on board as a fellow, right? The other factor is NGO themselves does not have the data, which is academically strong enough for them to be able to provide to journalists, to be able to direct a story which is powerful to the world, or the relationship across the border to look at the end-to-end story, source, transit, and destination. Like the powerful story of yours, you know how it worked. There has to be partner across this country. There has to be a relationship in this country. There has to be a trust building with the survivors of human trafficking. But I think in the forefront is that if the case is being documented, in the right space, as I think Pallavi was also mentioning, sometime you can't keep asking the young girl or the young survivors of human trafficking the same question. You are victimizing, you are traumatizing the person. And that is where I think the Impulse Case Management Center was an answer, not to traumatize a girl. You will only ask specific questions. So I think these are elements of learning lessons and how these can be integrated where we have more journalists coming on board. And I think today being a day also being observed as a World Day on, human trafficking, Impulse, and I would say the Press Lab is opening the fellowship again this year. And, we are proud when we tested and pilot, we have success like Pari and, others who are in Nepal and in Myanmar, which is also a challenged country right now, that we need to see more journalists coming forward to go into in-depth reporting, seeing this, that as, you can be the change factor in changing the perspective how people look at human trafficking, in changing the perspective of policy, engagement of dialogue, because the media has that tool. But today, I think when we look at media, we have two kinds of media. We have the social media, which people think that is the overall media, but we also have the main media. So we need to also bring this reflective journey as journalists, right? What investigation? Somebody posting a case on Facebook is not media reporting. We need to be able to differentiate that. Or as an organization, you will never see Impulse posting any cases in a platform in 32 years. The only story we would be posting is the films or the investigation done by journalists in the right perspective, and we would be sharing that. So these are very important elements that even nonprofit organizations need to understand the do and don'ts, their sensitivity line and where they should draw the line. That's a very important part in the crusade against human trafficking or slavery that we are trying to address. We should not make that mistake, because in this world today, you are going to make the vulnerability of a survivor more by posting something about her on the internet without taking this consent and what is going to happen to that person. Trafficker will be after the person. So we need to look at these do and don'ts, which are very, very important.
Right. So my last question is on do's and don'ts only. So I wanted to ask both of three of you, like, what advice would you like to give to the young people who are addicted to social media? How can they stay away or stay safe from being trafficked, from falling prey to trafficking? And also, how can Indian parents and guardians, can ensure that their children are using surfing net responsibly without, making it look like some kind of, moral policing?
So yeah, so I think the first thing is that don't add random people. People just want to add people. Don't add people. Your friends might be having 5,000 friends. Just don't add people. That's the first thing. Second thing is that don't share anything personal. We share everything in Facebook and Instagram. We have to be very careful that this information can be circulated anywhere. Also, while having conversations, be very careful, because generally chats are screenshot most of the times, like what we chat. And then if men are there, like especially, you don't know, the person might be showing that he is like a very handsome guy and XYZ, but you don't know the person. So telling you to come in video call, please don't be very careful. Even if it's a known person, don't go for video calling. Don't do that. Don't exchange numbers. Don't exchange your numbers. Also, a lot of times in Northeast, especially in Assam, I have seen suddenly one of our peers have a lot of expensive bags, expensive shoes, and we start asking them, okay, how did you get it? And then we don't question from where it is. Like, we think the parents have given, but that person might be making contact with somebody who just wants to befriend you and all that. Be very careful about all of this. With whom are you interacting, how you are talking, and who is getting how much of information about yourself. Don't start circulating your numbers. Don't have a lot of friends. Also, we end up telling a lot of our personal family problems to friends. Be very careful, because you don't know how your vulnerability can be exploited. That is for the children. And as far as parents are concerned, be friends. Don't stalk them. Don't keep following them. Don't start asking them who called you, why did the person call you. Just try to explain to the children. Be friends with the children. Tell the child that in this age, attraction happens. You might have infatuation, you might like a person, but whatever is it, tell your parents. Also, try to spend a lot of time with your children. I'm not telling you that you should leave your job and do that, but at least, one thing that I follow is that during dinner time, all the family members should have conversations, which we don't. We are always busy with the phone. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, Pallavi, I think Okay, so I think Hasina can chip in and
Yeah. So I think we will go with, if we're going by the statistics in our country, the use of social media by younger generation and younger age group is increasing every day. So definitely, I think what Pallavi was trying to put, it starts from the home, in the cause of making technology accessible, for all income groups. Today, even a low income group has made it mandatory that, when the online classes and online school, it has made even low income group to ensure that, access to telephone and smartphone is being given to the children. So that is where the crux of the do and don'ts that has to interface between parents and elders with the children in the house. That interface has to be more of an open conversation that needs to start from home, quality time. The other is the school themselves. In the course of it, school themselves will have to make it a mandatory conversations, in their classes as a subject matter that has to come in about online protection and safety and the do and don't, not just as a one-time element of just a workshop or a training or a one-time awareness program, but it has to be an ongoing process. The other is that when it comes to service providers and stakeholders themselves, I think the do and don't needs to be part and process of today's next phases of the movement of technology in our life. It's become a part and parcel of our life, that even NGO workers themselves, I mean, right now, in the fact that when we are working with multiple stakeholders at the back end, we find that even NGO workers themselves and the team and the people are not equipped on how to use social media. That is a challenge, a huge challenge. You are getting hooked to online games. You are getting hooked, to sports and activities online, not realizing that most of the artificial intelligence by traffickers, by people who are going to dupe. So it starts with money, right? The more you click on these spaces where money is being offered as a revenue to be part of it, that is the first tracking point where traffickers know that this person can be duped, number one. Number two is that your keen interest to earn money. So the do and don't has to start from there. The second part is that being hooked, into a phone, that that when you on your phone, you on the app, like the map, when you on the Google map or you on many of the app, people, artificial intelligence can read you where you are. That sometime you have this pop-up coming to you. Would you like to eat something right now? Do you like this dress? Do you like this color? How? That is where, and then, suddenly you just feel, oh my God, I was thinking of a red colored salwar kameez to buy today, and somebody is just telling me, pop it up, not realizing that there are two people on the back end. The artificial intelligence is working for two sets, for the trafficker, for the service provider, for the businesses. So we are up there, opening our vulnerability to the world. How do we counter that vulnerability? Number two, in the course of finding, I need to earn money, in the whole process, I'm gearing up constantly into the internet looking for it. I need to know which website to go and which one not to go. In the gear of like, I want to shop, right? I am opening myself to all my likes and dislikes and everything. So I think the consumerism that each one of us today, is, placing ourselves to the world needs to have a balance. And that balance has to start at different levels. And younger people get hooked to that more than anyone else if they are having everything on the spaces. It has goodness, it has challenges. So it's time that we come up with the do and don'ts, as people working in these spaces, and make those more easily available. When do you stop, right? Because sometimes it's also about that you can't stop using the internet. And that's where it poses a challenge. You just keep on going on and on and on, right? The picture you post, you have to determine what picture you post. The algorithm on the picture shows. So if today your picture is you like to be in the quietness and the serenity of the world, they know that you're a person. Algorithm will read it what? And it'll read how sensitive you are, how emotional you are, right? So what do we post, right? I mean, that is what you play to the world, how sensitive you are, how emotional you are, the picture you post, the kind of photograph you're posting. But a lot of people are still debating on this issue. No, come on, that is my photography skill. That is my skill, you know? But we need to understand what we put to the world. How much do we put? Which one do we put? How strong are we not to click on this button? How strong to be swayed, right? So that is where the age group factor of what we should do, you know, I mean, the do and don't has to be done for age group factor, and it has to be done it differently. You know, for a millennial, you can just tell them stop going on the internet. No way. Even the parent cannot do that. So you have to tell them, you know, what are the good and the bad through a way of making them more into a dialogue, you know, rather than telling them do it or don't do it. So these are the pros and cons that I think it's very highly important, because I see NGO workers themselves more vulnerable today to the technology platform. As we sit with a lot of experts that I'm learning myself, I mean, you're reading the vulnerability out there, their emotion, you know. Traffickers are coming on the NGO people and saying, hey, I can help you to trace this girl. Give me more information. And you don't realize it that you're being trapped by a trafficker. You know, your emotion display in the internet by an NGO worker, your activism display into the thing is also back and studied, right? What kind of personality are you and how vulnerable are you? So these are important elements that needs to also be available in terms of special way of how NGOs should deal with it, how nonprofit people, human rights defenders, we have to educate ourselves first before we educate others. So that's the way I would say, if we are in this field and we don't educate ourselves and we don't practice, what do we educate the world for? You know, so when we need to really see ourselves from that lens.
Sona, since I would like you to conclude with your inputs on the same question, since you are a working journalist mother to a young boy, so how do you think you can tell him to stay safe while going through the internet? Yes.
Well, I would just I would just like to share my experience. Something that happened last year. I have an 8-year-old boy, and because we were all at home, he would surf. We all were into our phones, and we were all hooked to that game, Ludo, online Ludo. So I would play it with my friends, and he also thought that it was a great way to make himself spend some time on that game. So he started playing that game on my phone, and one day I caught him. I found that he was playing this game with somebody, with some unknown person. And then I told him that, I counseled him. I said, you should not do that, because I saw that, that I don't know, that individual had sent some foul messages, which my son couldn't even comprehend. So that got me thinking as to what kind of a world are we living into, where even young children are unwitting witnesses to such kind of things that online that are happening online. So I decided to have a conversation with him. I decided to sit him down, and now after that incident, both me and my partner, we make a conscious effort to ensure that we are there. And we know what he's doing, and we talk about it, all kind of bullying and things that can go wrong on the internet. We talk to him about it. So yes.
So I think we have come to the end of today's discussions, and thank you so much to everyone, to all the panelists, for shaping such an important discussion, putting forward all the riveting experiences on such a crucial issue. And I thank you all, especially for taking out time to discuss this with me. And I'm sure all the participants would have found this discussion valuable and useful. So with that, we have come to the end of the conversation. And if anyone has any participants wants to contact any one of the panelists, then they can email them, and I'll put their email IDs on the chat box, and they can email their queries to you guys. right? And so with this, I would conclude the session. And before that, I would like to thank especially to the CSR Center for Social Research for providing all the technical supports and making this event successful, and our collaborating partner Impulse NGO Network. And again, thank you Hasina Kavi, Pallavi Ghosh, and Sona Singh for your time and for your useful and powerful information for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we leave, I'm going to post all the email IDs on the chat box. So, do you have any questions? Let me check. Uh, so,
Hi, Pari, on behalf of the Center for Social Research, I would like to thank you for moderating this very, very important event, and also all the panelists, Hasina ma'am, Pallavi ma'am, and Sona ma'am. Thank you so much.
thank you, Jyoti. So, there isn't any questions, so we can, I think, end this session.
Yes, and don't forget to just log on to Twitter. We've live posted the event, and we'll be posting throughout the week on our other channels also. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We would invite everyone to maybe leave the meeting if they want. The event is over. Thank you.